Why is Donald Trump all of a sudden talking about the Bagram air base in Afghanistan? And is he leading the United States to a second war in Afghanistan several years after the United States left Afghanistan following a 2-decade-long war against the Taliban? Well, now we're talking about multiple developments, including Donald Trump, not only with the Israeli Zionist regime, but he's making other threats as well against multiple countries. The same man who promised his voters that he's going to be ending all of the wars and continue with the policy of removing US forces according to what he previously was promising as well, after multiple presidents of the United States as well started to say that. However, when it comes to practicing it on the ground, they just are shy of continuing and taking those steps for some reasons. We're just going to try and explore these reasons here. But let's begin with the statements of Donald Trump and the Bagram base in Afghanistan. Trump is saying bad things will happen if Afghanistan does not return the Bagram air base. Number one, as if he owns Bagram air base. Bagram air base is part of Afghanistan. Afghanistan belongs to the Afghani people who resisted very bravely the American and NATO occupation of their country. And that was evident, especially after the United States forces fled with their tails between their legs following huge resistance from the Taliban against them. How Taliban very casually and naturally and organically took control over everything, because they were controlling many parts of Afghanistan, even with the US forces and their allies inside of Afghanistan. The excuse of Donald Trump is China. Again, China, according to Donald Trump, develops nuclear weapons 1 hour away from the Bagram air base. And that's the main reason that Donald Trump wants to occupy Bagram air base. So hold on a second. Number one, he wants to bring the US forces back to occupy Afghanistan again, which, well, guess how much how many trillions did the United States spend from the taxpayers' money without returning all of the equipment, leaving much of it for the Taliban? Is he that obvious, or is he intentionally saying, oh, China, look, I want to go back to Afghanistan because I want to threaten you from very nearby? And also, as if, China is declaring all of the nuclear facilities that they have next to Afghanistan. Okay, what happened leading to, and we'll get to the answer, and why he's getting to show this interest in the Bagram base again. Taliban is controlling the Afghanistani state now. As a matter of fact, they recently had meetings with Adam Bowler, who is in charge of the hostage cases and prisoner exchanges between Taliban and other countries too. And well, that was a recent picture between Adam Bowler and Amir Khan Muttaqi from the Taliban. Smiles, handshakes, sitting together casually, and they had agreed indeed on some prisoners being released without elaborating too much. Qatar has been playing a very important role also in relation to the mediation that happened between Afghanistan and the United States. They recently as well showed Qatar that they are standing by their side in the attack that Israel conducted against Qatar, that they are able to help them with whatever they need to. But is that what's worrying Donald Trump, or is it something else? When did the statement of Donald Trump came? It came just 3 days ago, or just 2 to 3 days after what? After this happened, the defense pact between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. The Pakistani authorities are confirming now that the defense pact includes nuclear arms being available or being made available to Saudi Arabia, not just with the protection of Pakistan, but also with the possibility of them arming Saudi Arabia directly, although they haven't said that. What we do know is if there is a risk against Saudi Arabia, Pakistan is going to be defending Saudi Arabia. And if they would want to launch missiles, for example, they're going to launch them from Pakistan up to Israel. If the United States would position its forces in the Bagram airbase, that means they would be able to intercept such missiles, or at least attempt to, just before they go out and head to Israel. Again, Benjamin Netanyahu and his involvement in the decision-making of the United States foreign policy, not for the sake of the United States, but for the sake of Israel. It was Benjamin Netanyahu who was applying heaps of pressure on every single president of the United States when he was in power to go and join them for a war against Iran. He was lobbying everyone, all of the hawks from the conservative side and from the Democratic side as well, but mostly from the Republican side in the United States, to take more harsh measures and also participate on behalf of Israel. As a matter of fact, it's well known that it was Benjamin Netanyahu who was also pushing for the United States to go to war with Iraq to a level where they had to come up with this lie of the WMDs against Iraq. And with Afghanistan, well, Bin Laden himself, who was in Afghanistan at that time, released a statement in 2001 confirming that it had nothing to do with 9/11. But the United States still went ahead with these wars. The United States now, under Donald Trump, the same man who said he's going to be ending wars, participated with Israel in its aggression against Iran, although not with all of its military power. But it shows you that Donald Trump is capable of and has the capacity to and is willing to take action on behalf of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, should Benjamin Netanyahu demand that from him. Now, the question remains, will he take steps to try and enforce that? There were multiple statements coming from senior figures in Afghanistan, including the defense minister, who is the son of Mullah Omar. His name is Mullah Yaqub, saying that there is no way we'll give an inch to anyone in the Bagram airbase. That is simply not going to happen. As a matter of fact, several Afghani officials as well teased Donald Trump when he said that they need to return all of the equipment that Joe Biden, according to him, left when the United States left Afghanistan, and much of these weapons remained in the hands of the Taliban. And they said, come and take it. Come and take the equipment if you can. Now, Donald Trump, of course, makes a lot of statements. However, if Donald Trump was willing to go and attack Iran and use the United States Air Force, if Donald Trump is still sending billions to Israel, if Donald Trump is not using anything in his power to stop the genocide and stop the other wars going on in the region, especially the threats coming from Israel, attacking 10 countries in the past 2 years, what's preventing him from coming up with new excuses and telling the Americans that he needs to go and reoccupy Afghanistan, regardless of how that will be taken, by the way, because he's going to be facing a big problem here. There's a huge shift in the public opinion. There's a very big shift in the conservative circles inside of the United States, as well in relation to everything related with the foreign policy that Donald Trump is leading. However, the risk remains there because Donald Trump is a man who is heavily influenced, if not even moved by Benjamin Netanyahu. And if Benjamin Netanyahu sees great interest in the United States deploying forces for the protection of the state of Israel, Donald Trump might at least consider that option if he won't actually go ahead with it.